Peace, family. All right, so let me preface this video by saying that I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional, so anything that is said in this video should not be taken as medical advice. Um, if anything that I mention relates in any way to any of your medical circumstances, before you do anything, please consult your doctor, do your own independent research, but I am not a doctor, I'm not a physician. I'm not an RN, I'm not an LPN, I'm not a CNA, I'm not a pharmacist, not a pharmacist tech. Um, I don't even play a doctor on TV, unfortunately. I should do that though. But anyway, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not a psychologist. I don't work for the psychic hotline, so I'm not a psychic, though there was that one time. But no, I think I was watching The Simpsons that day, so I don't think that counts. So no, I'm not a psychic. I mean, I don't get deja vu no more. No more. I mean, you can't prove that I do. I don't get deja vu. I'm not a counselor in any way. I mean, hell, I'm not even a life coach, though I probably could be. I should look into that. I think that'd be a good hustle, being a life coach. But right now, I'm not a life coach. I don't have that life coach diploma. Yeah, I don't have that. What else? I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a personal trainer. I didn't get that certification through Gold's Gym. So I'm not in any way a healthcare professional. So don't take this as medical advice. And yes, in case you noticed, today is Sunday. The video that you're about to watch, I recorded yesterday, Saturday. So yes, I absolutely put on the same shirt to make it look like the same day. But damn, what good is that if I'm just gonna tell on myself? Damn, VA. I got a problem. I got a strange addiction. Somebody help me. I need an intervention. It ain't alcohol or weed. There's just one thing that I need. I got an addiction to fruit trees. I got an addiction to fruit trees. I take a persimmon to please. Hey! The next one I'm getting, Jujube. Peace, family. I wasn't going to get on camera because, kind of looking a little scraggly. Y'all can see how old I am. Sort of look like Grizzly Adams. But, it is what it is, man. I wanted to get on just to talk a little bit about a topic that is very important to me, and that is investments. So when I talk about investments, and when you hear the word investments, a lot of times the first thing you think about would be something like money, something dealing with monetary investments. You may think about your 401k. You may think about whatever kind of investment account that you have with whatever banking institution that you have. You may think about buying property or buying houses and, even flipping houses and things like that. But when I talk about investments, I'm talking about it in the perspective or the aspect of growing. So you all hear me talk a lot about my investment beds. And I talk about it because, my investment bed is very important to me, because regardless of what I grow in my other beds, I can grow squash, I can grow radishes, I can grow beans and things like that. And if you save your seeds, yeah, that's considered an investment. So that's one thing that we all should be doing. We should be saving our seeds and looking at that as an investment. But the investment bed, which is where I have my asparagus and strawberries growing, once they really get established, it's like you can eat on that, and my family can eat on that pretty much forever, you know, for generations. So, you know, that's why I love my investment bet so much. As crazy as it looks, you know, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing right now. Um, Other investments that I have, that a lot of us also have, are my fruit trees. So, I mean, I don't have to take the stroll over to where the trees are. You all know, you know, I love my fruit trees. But that's an investment. Um, but then when you get into investments, and when I look at investments, as far as for me, I look at investments in the garden on different levels. So just to kind of put it in perspective, my peach trees, I consider that, as far as for a tree investment, if you will, I consider that sort of a short-term investment, just because, you know, they generally will fruit quick. You know, when you plant them, you know, you see how small mine is, and it's already, you know, producing peaches. They produce quick, but they don't produce as long as other trees. So that's why, you know, grafting and air layering and things like that are also important to me, because you can take a short-term investment like a peach tree and you can turn it into a longer-term investment by learning different ways to propagate it, you know, really replicate it, duplicate it. Because some of those methods that you use, you're kind of making clones of that original tree. You know, and that's how you make that short-term investment longer. Trees like persimmons, I would say that they're longer term than a peach tree, because they produce longer than peach trees do. But they're still, in my view, not as long term of an investment as, say, an apple tree or a pear tree. You know, those trees generally take longer to produce, but once they do produce, they produce for a longer span of time. So my trees are also very important to me. So I do have my peach trees, I have my persimmon trees, but I have quite a few apple trees. And when I say quite a few, you know, I don't have like 50 apple trees, but when you look at it in comparison to the other trees that I have more apple trees than, you know, the other ones. I also have my jujube tree, which I look at that as an investment as well. I think that's pretty much considered a long-term investment. But I also have something else here that I'm going to show you. Excuse the mess that I always have in my workshop area. So this is my pawpaw. Yeah, got me a pawpaw. So the pawpaw, that to me is considered a long-term investment. Now, if you think about it, well, the way that I think about it, and I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But a lot of the longer-term investment trees are ones that really require pollinators. Like, you know, a lot of cherry tree varieties require pollinators in order to produce. But, you know, once they get producing, they produce for a long time. I told you all that I was born and raised in New Jersey. There's an area where they're by these apartments, they have these cherry trees that are just growing. And those trees, you know, we used to eat off of those trees when we were little, like little. And I can go back now to that same tree and still get cherries. And I'm in my 40s now, you know what I mean? So, a cherry tree is a long-term investment. It requires a pollinator in order to be productive. Pawpaw is the same. You know, it requires a pollinator. So, just briefly on the pawpaw, first of all, I want to give a shout out to our brother Nick Thomas, the Garden Mac, because I got the pawpaw from him. I didn't do an unboxing on the pawpaw because when I ordered it the first time, it came not at any fault of his. And, you know, he's a good brother, man. But it came like 4 or 5 days after it was supposed to come. So when it came, it was just real distraught looking. I don't know. I mean, it may or may not survive. I have it potted. And actually, I have that one potted here. I'm just kind of, you know, monitoring it and just to see if it comes back alive. But it came late. And so he actually, you know, he sent out another one, which was good of him because he didn't have to do that. So he sent out the other one, and so I have one pawpaw, but I kind of have two pawpaws now, thanks to brothers. So check out Nick Thomas as well. I'm gonna leave a link to his channel because he's got a lot of good things going on. Also, man, very knowledgeable brother, real good brother. Certain people you do business with, when they have integrity, that's important. Especially when you're dealing with like a community like what we have here. So check Nick out. But I was kind of debating. He did a video showing his pawpaw trees that he was selling. And I had actually been debating on whether or not to get a pawpaw tree. Now, first of all, let me say that these two are the same variety, so they're not going to help each other in regards to pollinating, which is fine. Later on, I'll get another variety, and, it'll work that way. Plus, I don't know how long we'll actually be here at this property. So, my ultimate goal is to get somewhere a little bit further south with a little bit more land, and then I can put the trees in the ground and, have Pawpaw City. But if you get a chance, look up pawpaws. The thing is, they are actually considered they're one of the fruit trees that are native to North America, which is rare because, none of the other ones that we're familiar with so much are native to this country, but they're native, but you don't really hear much about them because when you get into like retail, when you get into selling them at the grocery stores, because their shelf life is not as extensive as some apple varieties or pear varieties, they don't sell them at the stores. You may find them at farmers markets. You're not going to find them in your grocery stores normally. But I debated on whether I should get a pawpaw because, for one, it takes a long time for it to fruit. Two, like I said, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be out here, and they grow, they're not huge, but they grow pretty big. That was another thing. And I just didn't really know a whole lot about pawpaws like that. But they are sort of, I don't want to say they're becoming extinct, but they're not as, I guess it used to be to where you can kind of walk around and see pawpaw trees, but you don't see them like that anymore. As people have been developing, in this country, pawpaw trees are not as, they're just not out there like that anymore. So I felt like it was important to try to preserve, what I could. And I felt like a pawpaw tree, on top of it being an investment, I felt like it would be me kind of doing my part to preserve them, even if it's just on my land. But pawpaws are also, they are related to soursop. And that's one of the things that got me intrigued by it. Anybody that's familiar with soursop, you know that the soursop leaves they're very powerful when it comes to fighting cancer cells, right? So I was wondering if, pawpaw leaves kind of had some of the same properties. So in looking up pawpaws, one of the things that I ran into was you can look up pawpaw, but sometimes the information that you get is actually on papayas and not pawpaws. Some people refer to papaya as pawpaw. So you got to really dig, to find information on pawpaws. And I'm going to leave the actual name of the pawpaw, as far as like its Latin name, it escapes me right now, but I'm going to leave that in the description also. So if you all are interested in pawpaws, I think it probably would be a good investment. But from what I found, when I was finally able to find anything in regards to like the cancer fighting properties, the one site that I found something on said that the leaves of the pawpaw actually have those cancer fighting properties as well. I don't know if that's legit. I'm still researching, but I felt like it would be a good investment. Like once we get it growing and we get a pollinator, that's a tree that'll produce for a long time. It'll just continue producing. And that's something my family could benefit from. So that's part of my investment situation. But the investments, like I said, to me, it's highly important because, these are things that, like, if something was to happen to me today, I know that next season, my family potentially could be eating from, my fruit trees and from the investment bed, and they wouldn't really have to worry too much about meals. I mean, they may get a little bored with what they have, but beggars can't be choosy. Don't be bougie. Eat them asparagus. But I look at things like berries as an investment. And I'm talking specifically about blackberries. Let me adjust the camera real quick. So that's my little blackberry plant. You all have seen it before. That I look at as an investment as well. And I look at it like an investment because this is a fruit that will continue to produce on its own. I mean, and it'll just keep producing and keep producing and keep producing. And I'm going to show you some of what I have back here just to kind of put it in perspective. To where it's like you don't have to worry too much about reproducing them because they'll do that by themselves. So if you look here, all of this back here, these green patches, well, most of these green patches are blackberries. Those are wild blackberries. And I really didn't realize that they were back here until last season. And there's a lot more back here than what it was even last season. I'm grateful for it being here because, I mean, they can forage, berries if it comes down to it, first of all. Second, the way that it kind of borders all around on my property, I'm hoping that it will, I'm hoping that all of that will keep the deer and things occupied so that they stay out of my garden. But, that I look at as an investment. Another thing that I consider an investment is my comfrey. I've got comfrey in this bed. I've got comfrey planted around in different areas. That's an investment as well. And the reason why I look at that as an investment is not just because of the fact that you can make comfrey tea and things like that, but it's an investment in your main investment, or what should be your main investment. Your main investment is your soil. Your soil. So the soil in your raised beds. Now this looks crazy, but I do a lot of chopping and dropping. There's a lot of dead grass, dead weeds that are breaking down. There's comfrey in here that's breaking down. There's leaves that are breaking down. There's wood chips in here that is breaking down. All of this is to benefit my soil. My grass, I'm going to say grass/weeds. I chop and drop all of this. You know what I mean? Because my number one investment is my soil. That's my number one investment. We say all the time that you're not feeding your plants necessarily, you're feeding your soil. And that should be your number one investment. And that's why comfrey is a major investment for me, because it helps with, for one, enriching the soil. But see, comfrey has like a very long tap root, right? That gets into areas that other plants may not be able to reach, and it pulls nutrients up into those leaves. So when you see the leaves like this, especially when they get big, you know that they're full of nutrients. So when you chop and you drop it, it's like you're putting those nutrients into the top surface of the soil for it to be absorbed by, your plants. Also, I find like sometimes I'll kind of scratch away at the soil to put the comfrey down. Worms love it. And, again, it just enriches. It makes it so much richer when you put comfrey down. And with the crack in the soil, or, going down as deep as it does, it actually makes the soil around it, or around the plant that you have the comfrey in, it makes it looser. It gives your roots air, so that it can breathe It also gives worms and little critters like that more room to kind of move around in. There's been times where I've pulled up the comfrey root, because you reproduce it by pulling the root up, and then you can cut the root and then plant those pieces in different places and you'll get more comfrey. But there's been times where I pulled the root up and there's worms all around that root, you know, because they have more room to actually move around in. You know, so comfrey is an investment. You know, so, and anything, you know, perennial. You know, I talk a lot about my investment bed, you know, where I have the asparagus and the strawberries, but also, you know, your things like green onions. You know, these, they survive in the winter here. You know, and these are huge right now, but man, it's like nothing. I'll cut these down, chop them up, and, you know, make a meal out of them. Well, not make a meal out of them, but I'll accompany, you know, different things that I'm making with these huge green onions that I'm so grateful for. But that's an investment. You know, they come back every year. They survive in the wintertime. It's nothing for me to come, you know, in the wintertime and then take some green onion and take it inside. And it will, even in the wintertime, it'll actually kind of grow. It doesn't grow as fast, but it still grows. But that's an investment. More berries, those are investments for me. You know, one other thing too that I don't know if I probably have mentioned it but didn't really say too much about it. But these are 2 pomegranates. They're 2 pomegranates. I got to figure out where I'm going to put them. I want to put them in containers, in big containers, and I got to separate them. But those are 2 pomegranates that I grew from seed. Investment. You know, whenever you grow something from seed, you know you're not going to reap the benefits of it right away. It's going to take time. And pomegranates, I believe, they actually produce for a long time if you take care of them. This is another one that I did later. But that's another investment. So another, just touching on, you know, your soil being an investment, just kind of looking at this as an example. This is where I have my potatoes growing. This soil is going to be reused. You know, I'll kind of replenish it with different things, but, you know, this is an investment, you know, and that's part of the reason why I did it the way that I did it, you know, as far as like putting wood chips and stuff in, grass clippings in the soil, and not just soil when I'm hilling up my potatoes. I mean, it may or may not, you know, work out, but, you know, we'll see. Either way, I know that this soil is good and I'll be able to use it again. Another thing that I use in my soil, like in my pots, because I mean, whether you're growing in pots or you're growing outdoors, your soil is still your number one investment. It's still your number one investment. And if you can figure out ways to replenish your soil, you know, especially if you can do it with what you have without having to purchase a whole lot of things, that to me is a successful investment. You know, so in replenishing the soil, I'll use things like, I'll use comfrey, you know, I'll use, you know, more wood chips and grass clippings and things like that I'll have breaking down in other areas. Pretty much compost. But what I also use is biochar. I make biochar here, you know, I was about to say on my homestead. I don't know if you consider this a homestead, but on my property. So like, I have all this wood that came from the tree that we had cut, and I've been burning the wood. Like if you see that little pile there, that's the last time I burned, I had to put it out before I can burn it all the way down. But with biochar, basically all that is you burn your wood. Now, sidebar, I don't use any like chemicals or anything like that to get my wood burning. I do the cotton ball method to get it going. But you burn it down to where, if you can see these pieces here, it's basically charcoal. But you inoculate that charcoal with, you know, with different things, with nutrients. Now, what I do, and if you want more information on it, maybe I'll do a video doing it. Or if you look up Diva Jones 03, she's got a lot of information on it as well. So does David the Good. But I have in buckets, I've got what we consider super juice. So it's rainwater. I have, there's a little 511 in it. I've got my comfrey leaves. I've got weed. weeds that I pulled up and put in those buckets, and I put my charcoal in there, and I let the things that I put inside of the water break down, and as it breaks down, the charcoal that's in the buckets with it, it absorbs those nutrients, and I let it sit there for a minimum of 2 weeks. Sometimes I let it sit there longer, but it pulls up the nutrients and it becomes biochar. You know, it's biologically activated charcoal. And when you incorporate that into your raised beds, into your pots, or even if you're planting directly into the ground, you know, you can incorporate it that way as well. What it does is it's a constant source of nutrients for your soil and for your plants. So with charcoal, charcoal is porous. And I mean, if you can look at it, you can see that it's got pores. So it absorbs. You know, like when if you drink something that you're not supposed to, you know, one of the things that they give you is activated charcoal to get rid of that, because the charcoal absorbs those poisons. It absorbs toxins, you know. But with it being porous, it pulls that stuff up. And when it's in your soil, it not only does it provide nutrients, but it also becomes like a habitation for beneficial insects. You know, so you've got insects in and out of that biochar that's in your soil now, and they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. The biochar is constantly absorbing and sharing nutrients. So like as things break down in your soil, it's still pulling and it's still pushing out. So you have situations where, you know, especially when you get into like mass farming, you have to do a lot of crop rotation because the nutrients get depleted in certain areas with certain crops, so you have to switch it or you have to give it a rest. But with biochar, you generally don't have to do that because you constantly have a constant source of nutrients, you know, that's being provided. So the concept of biochar came from studying terra preta, which it's like ancient civilizations, you know, how they used to grow things. You know, they'd have big holes where they would put logs and things like that, and they would burn it down to coal, and then they would inoculate it with different things that would give it nutrients. They'd put the soil back over it, plant over it, and, you know, they just had luscious crops, just, you know, without any issues. So, you know, if you are able to make biochar, that's another investment, you know, because that's, you know, investing in your number one investment, which is your soil. Now, if you don't have a way to burn wood, you know, just say you're in an apartment or whatever, but you still make your super juice, or even if you've got some 511, you know, because that'll work as well. You can still do it. You go to like your Malwart, your local Malwart, and they have what is that brand? It's a brand of charcoal it's all natural. I want to say is it red oak? But it comes in a big bag for like $10. And it has no chemicals or anything like that, no chemicals, all natural charcoal. I mean, and if you're making super juice, even in your apartment, just make your super juice as you usually would, and put some of that natural charcoal in the buckets with it. And then when you get to about 2 weeks, you know, fish it out and put it into your soil, put it into your pots and things like that. You definitely will benefit from that. And that's definitely investing in your number one investment. All right, family, so I'm not going to keep you and I'm not going to belabor this point, but this has been something that is very important to me. You know, even before I started planting in the way that I'm planting, oh, my little daughter's coming. Not camera lady, my older daughter. But this is something that, you know, I thought about even before I started planting for this season, you know, because it's something that's very important to me. I apologize for this video being so long. I really didn't intend that. But I hope that it at least gave you something to think about. Hey, can I introduce you to the peeps? Come here, little baby. This is my daughter. This is Mickey, y'all.
Hello. I saw you outside.
You did?
Yeah, I was getting my pills.
Your hair smells good.
Thank you.
Your hair smells like when you was a baby. But anyway, I appreciate y'all being here, and Yeah, I apologize for this being so long, and y'all gotta forgive me for getting all glissy. My little baby's here. All right, y'all. Peace.